Welcome to today's edition of Weather to Watch. It is early February, the 3rd to be exact, 2025. Most of the country is warm, but winter is going to creep back in. We'll have all the details. We still have winter in the northwestern U.S. with heavier snows, not necessarily in the mountainous areas, but through much of Montana. We also have some ice possibilities. The target seems to be in and around the Pennsylvania area. I'll detail that, a surge of moisture running into some cold air. Warm weather for many still. Now, there are some cold air intrusions, but much of the country, at least for the next couple of days, is going to be hanging on to abnormally warm weather. But there are signals that the pattern is beginning to change. Beginning this weekend, I think, and lasting probably from that point through at least the week after that, and maybe a little bit longer. As always, we'll start looking at the lower 48, beautiful satellite image, and most of the country is dry, but there are winter exceptions in the corners, upper corners, northeast and northwest. Much of the central and southern U.S. pretty dry and very mild, I should say, and we'll talk a little bit more about where the frontal systems are here in a minute. But if we overlay the 500 millibar chart on here, like I love to do, there is a general flow, of course, as you can see, basically that goes across the central U.S. like this. Again, the winds are assumed to be blowing roughly along these lines like that. And there are small disturbances like this one producing snow in the northeast. That was in Minnesota a couple of days ago. And then just a general flow of moisture into the northwestern U.S. still. We'll do a review of the surface chart here on this Monday afternoon. The most striking feature is an Arctic front that stretches from the northeast through the central plains. Not a lot of low pressure developing along this here, but this front is pretty significant. It's going to replace here temperatures that are in the 30s in New England, but warming to the 50s by the time you get to Virginia, south of that warm front, and this cold front will be moving through that area. Meanwhile, we follow the front on down through the Midwest. It's a dry front. There's not a lot of precipitation occurring along it at all, really, and I don't think there will be. But look at these temperatures out ahead of this front, upper 70s in parts of northern Arkansas, northwestern Arkansas, Joplin 75 degrees. This is at 3 o'clock, but a pretty sharp temperature drop, and we'll take a look at the change in temperature here in a minute, but we're talking about only teens in portions of Nebraska. Meanwhile, this front wraps back up to the northwest, complex series of lows in the northwest, and generally speaking, we're still looking at kind of a train of storms that go off the coast there. So we're looking at a lot of precipitation still coming in, a lot of winter weather and cold temperatures. Montana, most of the state is below zero at this hour, so very, very chilly. And in the southwestern U.S., high pressure is in control of areas of Arizona and New Mexico, pretty fair weather. And finally in the south, extremely warm, with low to mid 80s, even close to 90. There are some 90s actually in southern parts of Texas and over in Florida. A temperature recovery from what they've seen the last couple of weeks, with 80s abounding in the state, 70s in the panhandle. Temperatures have changed pretty dramatically behind that central U.S. cold front. If you're looking at this, these are minus 40-degree temperature drops in the panhandle of Nebraska, in a large area here where the temperature has dropped 30 to 35 degrees in the last 24 hours. So that front is moving through Kansas into northwest Missouri. I'm in Springfield, Missouri, right down here. So we actually warmed quite a bit today from yesterday. But we'll take a step back before taking a step forward in temperature again, and then finally taking a step back. So that's that pattern of temperature I was talking about, some ups and downs, a lot of warm. But generally speaking, the warm air is going to get shoved, given days getting deeper into February, down into the far southeastern portion of the country. So let's take a look at the precipitation pattern. This is interesting. So this is total precipitation. Now, thankfully, these numbers are not all that high. So we're looking at everything below an inch, basically, maybe a few pockets above 1 inch there in Ohio, West Virginia. And again, if that were all rain, we wouldn't have a problem. This is a 3-day forecast. It includes today through Wednesday. But the issue is what's happening up here with regard to where the cold air is, and in particular, is it going to get out of the way, basically, of the oncoming precipitation? So this is a look at the frontal boundaries. And this is a developing low pressure area right here. This eventually will become a warm front later on Wednesday into Thursday. So this is all lift out ahead of that front. And this is an Arctic high. So there's cold temperatures lingering with this high that's kind of butting heads with the advancing precipitation shield. And the result could be ice. We have two models to look at. Here is the European model showing a lot of ice from, let's say, Erie, PA, almost, well, not quite there, but certainly up around Buffalo, through the heart of Pennsylvania, and down into the higher elevations of Virginia, parts of West Virginia possibly as well. This is the map as it's anticipated looking on Thursday morning. And then if we look at the GFS, that was the Euro, this is the GFS, and it's showing a similar pattern. So it looks like the trouble for this would be beginning late on Wednesday into the overnight hours of Wednesday into Thursday for those folks. And I didn't see anything above 1/10 of an inch of precipitation of ice accumulation. Again, if this isn't as juicy of a system as it could be, that's good because that'll slow down the ice accumulation. Still, it doesn't take a whole lot. Especially if this is time for Thursday morning at rush hour in Pennsylvania or parts of Virginia, that could be a little problematic. We'll switch gears and look at the northwest U.S. Still lots of snows in the higher elevation. Feet and feet and feet of snow have fallen over the last couple of days with that atmospheric river. Still have a smattering of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories virtually covering Montana. Most of the northern two-thirds of Idaho, certain sections of Oregon, and northern California as well. This is the high temperature departure as forecast for Wednesday. Now, I did show that cold front. That's going to shave down the temperatures temporarily, but notice what happens by the day right after tomorrow, Wednesday. It's back up to 70 where I live, 70s covering all of Texas, even 80s down there, well above normal. That's the colors you see. The colors are actually temperature departures, while the actual numbers are the highs forecast by the Weather Service. Still cold, and if you've looked at this map before, the star is the warmest, the red one, and the blue one up here in Montana is the coldest. So still some Arctic air hanging on there. And I show you this because on Wednesday, look at the temperatures in Pennsylvania. So we're looking at 32 degrees, just 19 degrees in Buffalo. So this is that interface area where that precipitation is riding this way. So it's running into that colder air that's kind of dammed up a little bit with the high pressure, not really retreating all that much. So that's where that ice potential really comes in. And by the way, I want to show you this same map for Sunday, high temperatures and their departures. Again, the colors are above or below normal. So it's a squeeze play, really. The warm air is covering less ground as we head into the weekend, whereas the below normal temperatures are kind of gaining a foothold a little bit. And this is reflected in a couple of different other maps I'm going to show you here. Here's the 6 to 10 day temperature forecast. Let's see, I'll change my ink color here. Let's use a black. There we go. And this is what I'm talking about. So the warm air, the above normal temperatures are getting squeezed down to the south, while much of the New England and the central and northern plains and the northwest and the west are going to have a high probability of below normal temperatures. Now, what's interesting about this is, as to a rough approximation, when you see this kind of thing, depends on the pattern. And in this case, it actually holds true that this area here between the warm and cold air is a storm track, or at least a perceived possible storm track. The precipitation forecast for that same period, 6 to 10 days, matches that. So the million-dollar question is, this is a precipitation forecast. It doesn't bother to differentiate between rain and snow here, but you can make an interface here between these two and realize that this is probably rain, but the northern end of this could be snow. And as the final map we'll look at here, this is the 8 to 10 day hazards outlook. So this is going out 14 days, is 2 weeks from today. But this is the government's product here, and they're showing a slight risk here of a snowstorm in this area here, maybe more than one, by the way, from some of the model data I was looking at, but that tends to be real fantasy land. I can kind of generally comment that that's a storm track there, but I just don't know the specifics yet. Snow in the northern plains, a higher probability there. And then this is heavy rain here. In fact, it goes from a slight risk to a moderate risk in the Tennessee River Valley. So right in here, there could be some trouble with snow or maybe ice. It depends on the thermal structure of the atmosphere by the time we get to that point. It's a couple of weeks away, at most 8 days away, more than a week. So it's just something to kind of watch in the central U.S. going into next week, where the cold air is going to kind of try to penetrate a little bit more into the central and to the eastern and even the southeastern U.S. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. These come out about every other day or so. If you liked the video, please like it on YouTube, and please subscribe to my channel as well, and we'll see you in the next video.